morning. This is Tampa Home Talk. I'm your host, Katrina Madewell, joined by my favorite sidekick that we missed last week.
Yeah, I was near to the office. I was collecting pollen in my mask, apparently.
Sounds like it, yeah. So, another exciting week in real estate. We're getting a couple more listings. Let's chat about the numbers this morning. And interesting stat, like the sold numbers are down just a little, but the pendings are way up.
Well, sold has to be down because the new listings are down.
Yes. Well, they've been down, right? We've been seeing the 800 new properties. So the number of new listings right now in the market is 976. That's in a 7-day period. 3 counties. So we look at Pasco, Pinellas, and Hillsborough, just single families, and just a quick little snapshot of single family homes in the last 7 days. The number of active right now is 976. The number of sold is 1,304. And the number of pending comes in at a whopping
1916, and I know why. I can explain it. So
do tell why.
Got all these teachers on spring break this week, and they're all house hunting.
I thought it was next week. I guess there's some this week, right?
No, it's some this week, some next week, but they're all house hunting right now. So if you're on spring break anywhere in the United States, you're coming to Florida, and you're putting a house under contract.
Yeah, spring break has officially sprung. So what do you, just curious what you think. I've always said what I think, but how do you think this is going to impact our market long term, right? We know markets have ebb and flows. You love the numbers enough and have looked at economics enough to know that that's true. What do you think about how that relates to Tampa? And the mayor just did a whole thing about how Tampa is like a hotbed now.
We were a hotbed a while ago.
We've been a hotbed, yeah.
We've been like a coal sauna.
But long term, do you think the hurricanes are going to scare people off, or you think they're going to still keep coming in droves and it's going to have long term impacts on our market?
I mean, that's a different question. We have to look at the extremeness of weather. Like, if we take into account the ice storms that we were having in the Midwest all the way up through the Northeast these past couple of weeks, if you looked at that, that was actually coupled with record highs here in Florida. Believe it or not, I'm wearing a jacket right now, but...
Well, look, it snowed in Texas this year.
Yeah,
I mean, weird stuff like that.
Major ice storms in Texas while we had record highs. If Florida is having record highs, that means we're going to have a vicious hurricane season. So it's like
And our summer's going to be hotter, you think?
Our summer's going to be hotter. And what's happening is the north part of the planet is trying to cool itself, and the south part of the planet is heating up to do that. So that means we get those
So do you think
hurricanes.
more people will live in the middle? Do you think that will drive their markets a little more?
No, I'm just talking like we're in for a vicious hurricane season, and as long as Florida is warm or warmer than the rest of the United States, more people will be looking to come here. We didn't have really cold weather. We had cold weather, but not really cold weather when the rest of the country had it. So more people are going to be looking to come here. Then we're going to have these vicious hurricanes. And that's going to spark growth and development because as old infrastructure gets knocked down, it's going to be rebuilt bigger and taller and more powerful.
So, and the building codes are going to continue to change, right, as we've seen. And you study the infrastructure, right, and how things are built even in the islands, right? They get battered with storms. I know you visit Belize regularly and do inspections and that sort of stuff down there. So do you think, how's the building codes? I know we're a little off topic, but how's the building codes like in the islands compared to here, and do you think we'll follow suit?
Well, the building code in the islands follows the international building code or sometimes the 10-state building code. But they're building concrete. If you've got money, you build concrete buildings. Like your roof is concrete, your walls are concrete, everything's concrete. I mean, here in Florida, we have first floor block, second floor frame, wood roof with shingles on it. You don't have that down there. You're basically looking at just a big concrete shell. I mean, I was loosely involved in a project down in Belize where they were using a concrete 3D printer to make homes. They just set up the printer, it did its thing, and you ended up with a concrete shell. I mean,
I can't even see that in my mind.
Have you seen its 3D printer?
I think I've seen the outcome of the 3D printer, but I haven't seen it.
Okay, well, just imagine that green whatever that you were holding in your hand being concrete, and the concrete being a lot bigger. You can spin a home, basically. It's like you're building a home from the ground up really fast.
That's got to be on YouTube, so I'm going to YouTube that now.
But that's where construction is headed in the other places. I mean, it's all concrete. Here, we're still mixing concrete and wood. Florida building code's getting stricter. However, the best construction to weather a storm is going to be a concrete box.
Yeah, I mean, because really it's probably not going to do much damage to it, right? But then I guess the roofing system's what, metal? Or
No,
the roof's even metal? Or the roof's even
It's
concrete?
concrete. I mean, there's metal in the concrete because you need the metal inside embedded in the concrete. But yeah, it's metal and concrete.
Interesting.
don't know.
Have you been involved in any plans where people were building all concrete?
Yeah, I mean, it's not that difficult.
Well, of course, says the engineer, but we just don't see it.
We don't see.
We don't see it here.
I just Googled that on and it really
The 3D concrete printer?
Yeah, it kind of looks space age.
It's pretty awesome. I mean, and if you think
very
about
modern
space age, there's technology that you can. There was a special I was watching where they want to make solar powered cells in space, and to do that, you need robots. So the robots use the energy they collect from the solar panels to make more robots, to then make more solar panels, and it becomes self-sustaining.
Wow.
Because if you think about it, there is more energy in
I don't watch TV, but I would watch stuff like that.
There's more energy that comes off the sun, like 100 times more energy in a day that comes off the sun than 1,000 times the amount of energy we produce in a year. We need to figure out how to capture solar energy because that is unlimited energy for us.
Well, if they're mass producing solar panels with robots, I think solar is going to get cheaper.
Well, that's a hypothetical.
By the way, Katrina, when you build this house, it looks like the Tasty Freeze machine that's actually out working.
Pretty much.
And pouring the concrete out.
So the big ice cream cone, is that what we're talking about?
Yeah.
Yeah, like that machine that brings out the ice cream. That's
Like
what
the
it's doing
swirl.
with the concrete, right? And it's just a big machine, like a big giant robot on the lot, just building it from ground up.
I just need to witness it, I guess. I need to physically see it.
It is pretty awesome. I mean, if you've seen a 3D printer in action, that's pretty awesome too. But that's where we're headed. That's where we need to be headed. Easier construction, safer construction, and
It's where people getting hurt.
weathered construction. It's construction that can survive the weather.
We don't take a lot of call-ins, right? Sometimes we do. We give out our on-air number, but if you want to, I'm just curious. Like, if you know where they're building one of these 3D concrete printer things.
Well, not here in the United States. Well, not here in Florida.
There got to be some kind of 3D printing something, right? Something.
I mean, what we have here in Florida that's pretty neat that's going on is the shipping container homes. And we've had those people here on the show.
Yes.
Or the shipping container food truck pop-ups like we have at Sparksman Wharfs, or we have at that one group we had here preaching it about St. Pete. That's what's happening here. We're reusing shipping containers to make them habitable, which is also awesome because concrete...
Pretty much hurricane-proof as well.
Yeah. Concrete homes are neat, but that's using new materials. Shipping container homes are using the materials we already have, so it's kind of like recycling in a way.
It's very big in Germany, by the way, too.
What, the concrete or the shipping containers?
Shipping containers.
No, the 3D homes. They're building them in Germany.
So I have to ask. I'm just going to open up our phone line. So if you know where they're building anything like this, seriously, I want to witness it. Or maybe your company is doing that. Call in. Talk to Pat George. And if you want to pop on the air, that'd be great. If you don't, he'll do it for you. But 888-404-1010, that's our on-air number. It's 888-404-1010. Let us know if you know where they're building one of the, or there's like a printer that's building something.
Building homes.
Yeah, homes specifically, but
It's neat to watch a whole subdivision go up that way.
that would be just, I would be fascinated. We'd cover that for sure. We'd go do a live remote broadcast for that. So, again, if you know where one of these are, call us, 888-404-1010. We'd love to hear all about it. And maybe you even know it, or you are in this line of work, or you witness it. Call us.
I know it, and I'm in this line of work.
Well, but you don't. Have you had firsthand experience with it?
So I have to call. I just said I was loosely involved in a project in Brazil.
Okay. That was these.
Yes.
Okay, I said I wanted to witness it here.
I
Didn't help me if it's in Brazil.
They're not doing it
Yeah,
here.
she wants to go and watch it.
I want to
know.
see it.
It is neat. Even if you just watch a 3D printer make something, it is totally neat on what it does. I would highly recommend just doing that. And that's easily to come by, finding someone with a 3D printer.
So numbers are way up. Inventory is way down. If you've thought about selling, now is the time to do
Definitely.
that. Now is the time to get on board. Even if you don't want to sell and you just want to get the market value of your home, we can do that. Just call or text our off-air number. Text value to 813-377-2775. Just call or text the word value to 813-377-2775, and we'll get you a market report for all the homes in your neighborhood that have sold in your price ranges in the last 6 months, which is pretty That's what you want, right? Not a year. Go about 6 months back. So
I only want price for like last 2 months.
yeah, pretty much. Big difference even this year, right?
Oh, it's crazy.
So 813-377-2775, call or text value. And when we come back right after this break, we're going to introduce my friend Ashvin Maharaj with All County Alliance Property Management. Back in a minute.
Well, good morning. Welcome back. Leo Kane here, building a radio show from the ground up using a
3D printer?
3D Mindscape. 3D
Okay.
Mindscape.
We got to get fancy with this here.
We do. Welcome home. Welcome home.
Good job.
We have a
It
great.
works.
Speaking of homes, we have a guest who can help find you a home.
No, he doesn't do that part.
Well, he kind of does.
Not really.
He has homes
If you
available.
want a rental place,
Yeah, he has homes available.
there is a big market for that.
Having homes available for
No,
rent.
yeah, for rent and for sale.
Yeah. So riddle me this. So we've got Ashvin Maharaj from All County Alliance Property Management. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you.
So you help people who don't want homes find homes.
Yes,
And then Katrina
Who don't
helps
want
people
homes
who
find
want
homes?
to find homes find homes.
correct.
And you two don't like each other's spaces for the most part. You're not going to find someone a home, pointing to Ashvin, and Katrina, you're not going to find
I don't
someone
like
a
the property
temporary.
management. No.
Okay, so this is kind of neat. So you guys are like polar opposites in a way.
Yeah, we both hold a real estate license. We're
Correct.
very different.
Correct.
That's awesome. So Katrina, who's very successful as finding people's homes, doesn't want to
And
touch
selling their home.
and selling your home
For a lot of money.
for a lot of money. Doesn't want to touch your space. So
Right.
what is it about your space that scares people like Katrina?
It's a long-term commitment when you have a rental property. You have a tenant in there for a year.
I don't think that's it.
I don't think that's.
I'll tell you what it is if you want to know.
Yeah, what scares
Be quite
you?
frank.
What scares you from property management?
It's not that it
space?
scares me. I'll tell you what I don't like, and then I'll tell you 2 reasons why I don't do it. Well, why I don't like it is one reason, but then I'll give you another reason. So the first thing is property management is you guys are on call. You got to have somebody on call all the time, 24/7, 7 days a week. That's not my business. I don't operate that. Some people do, right? Like,
Yep.
and some people think, oh yeah, property management, yeah, that's it. And like, I'm like, yeah, no, I don't want to do that. But you have people. I'm sure you have a whole business and infrastructure set up. Just not something that I want to do. The second reason why we don't do it is E&O insurance. So most residential real estate agents, and sometimes even commercial for that matter, will not tackle property management because some of the most lawsuits are between tenants suing agents,
Yes,
right?
that's correct.
Tenant suing.
Agents.
Oh wow. So
Yep.
it's highly litigious.
Yep.
It's on call 24/7 because you're on call pretty much
No, I'm not.
12/7.
12/7. Well, I do.
12/7.
I mean, I have a team though. I guess it's no different than yours, right? In that respect, but
Yeah, they're not calling in Ashvin at 4 in the morning
I don't
when their
get the
toilet
calls.
breaks.
Yeah, at 4 in the morning if someone's freaking pipe bursts, right? Like, can
Right.
you imagine being property manager in Texas
Correct.
with all that stuff they had going on? I feel so bad for them.
If they won't call me, they'll call my wife.
Oh, so your wife takes all the calls.
Yes.
Got it. Okay, yeah. So, are you tell me about the evictions because I'm curious about this, right? We had the moratorium for a long time. There was a big misconception on what could and could not be foreclosed on. Some tenants were not paying during COVID. And then I had this whole thing with I had a guy that hired me to sell his property. He did his own lease and everything. And the tenant was a total jerk. Right. And so basically we ended up having to get the attorneys involved to send him love letters to let him know we can and will evict you for non-payment and non-renewal. And which are, by the way, are 2 separate things. But are you seeing a large number of evictions? Like, what are you seeing kind of in that moratorium space?
In our office, we've had 2 evictions in the last, I would say, 2 months. That's been it. One of the tenants we've had hasn't paid rent in over a year and a half. So the owner came to us with that problem, and we worked with our attorneys, and we got her evicted. She ended up owing about $17,000 in rent. And it was not because of a loss of income or anything due to COVID. The other one we had was people had this misconception that the CDC was going to protect them with this eviction moratorium, so they stopped paying rent.
Yeah, I'll stop paying. They won't
Correct.
evict me.
And that's not how it is.
You're
you
right.
can still get evicted.
I know it's crazy how I don't know how people just took that from what was going on, but
now we do
again another instance where the media kind of super spins or overexposes, whatever's going on. So here's another thing too. I know the Tampa Bay Business Journal reported on this, but we have been seeing major hikes in rent prices in the Tampa Bay market. And I heard something that Pat George sent me yesterday where the mayor was even talking about affordable housing. And so when I start thinking, like from my perspective, when I hear affordable housing, I'm all for it. Trust me, this is part of my long-term plan and vision of what I'm here to do. But what I don't want to see is the rent controls like we see in some other major cities, because Tampa does not have that right now.
Right.
So what are you seeing in terms of like rent hikes? Like, just talk more about that in general.
We are seeing an average about 20% increase in rent. We have people lining up, calling our office every day for a rental property, anywhere from $2,500 to $3,000 a month, and in Tampa Bay,
and they can't find it.
And they can't find it, and in Tampa Bay, that's pretty high. That's a pretty good house that you're going to rent for $3,000. And we have people calling in from Hawaii, agents calling us looking for somewhere just to house their client because they're going to buy a house down in Tampa Bay, but they can't find one right now.
So do you do the short-term rentals as well?
No, we don't.
Okay.
Our office doesn't.
Okay.
So as a landlord, I would say that part of the reason why rents are going up is property taxes are going up.
Correct.
So I don't really think they can rent control Florida if Florida's main source of income is property tax.
Yeah, I mean, well, they're seeing it in, places like California, a lot of major markets. I don't know what their budget's like. Apparently there is none because it's all out of whack, but it's, there's some of these major markets where it's super expensive. There's rent controls. So I've heard crazy stories from agent friends of mine in that market where someone's like renting this beach cottage for, some stupid amount that they wouldn't be nowhere near that even to rent a bedroom. So I know Tampa was like one of the 11th highest year-over-year rent increases in the U.S., with the median rent rising to 6.9%. And this is, in Tampa, the median's around $13.75. And then no other Florida metro really went above 4%. So Tampa's really on fire.
Correct.
But really, $13.75 doesn't get much.
No, it doesn't. $13.75 in our market, you'll probably get a one-bedroom
condo,
one-bath condo, maybe in New Tampa.
Now, what's your area? What areas do you guys do property management in?
We manage from Beers Avenue, pretty much a university area, north to 52.
Okay. Are you doing anything down in Tampa?
We do have some properties down in Tampa.
Okay.
It's not our market that we market to, but usually when we have a homeowner who owns multiple properties, they don't want to split their portfolio.
Of course,
They want to go to a different office, so we manage them.
So now how often are you guys reevaluating this every year to see if the landlord can rent it, if the market value's way up, or you advising them if they have an amazing tenant to leave it alone, or what's that look like?
Yes. We'll do a market analysis about 2 months out from a lease renewal, and then do it again a month before we issue a new lease. We'll get with the owner, make sure they don't want to sell, or if they want to continue renting or selling it, and then we'll do a markup on it if it's feasible.
Now, if you have a really good tenant, do you not want to mark it up as much as you could because you want to keep the tenant there? Does that factor into any of these renewals?
We do mark it up a little bit because of rising cost of,
everything.
Taxes, like you mentioned, yeah.
Insurance, all of this is going up, so we do mark it up, but we don't go extreme. Most of our tenants we've had multiple years, so it's not one of those where they come in, they rent for a year, and then they move on. They usually stay with us.
Yeah, because I would say that if my property taxes are going up 10 to 12%. My homeowner's insurance is going up 20%. The tenants are going to feel that to some extent.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, the landlord can't absorb
otherwise,
that
I'm
cost.
just losing money year over year.
Right. So let's talk about the benefits of having a property manager other than the calls from the pipe burst at 2 a.m., right? There's a lot of other just built-in really good benefits of having a property manager versus being self-managed or whatever other options there are.
Correct. We one of our major things that we benefit a homeowner, like you said, apart from the phone calls, is knowing what maintenance needs to be done. You might have a tenant that might clog a toilet. That's not the landlord's fault. That's the tenant's fault. So, at that point, when we send in a plumber, we can legally charge the tenant for that.
So if you see they flushed a diaper
Correct.
down the toilet,
Correct.
and the plumber's pulling it out, you're like, yeah, you're not putting this on the landlord.
Correct. And a lot of landlords, when they're self-managed, they don't know how to say no to a tenant, and we do.
One of the biggest things I see too, and here's the difference, and we saw this during the housing market crash. There was people that wanted to sell and physically could not. Right? They're like, I'm not going to commit fraud and do a short sale when I don't have a hardship. Right. So they didn't have a choice other than to rent it if they wanted or needed to move. So they did that. And then later we would sell their property. But on the rentals, one of the biggest things I see, and some of them, wanted to self-manage. And I'm not a property manager, but I know a lot of the rules, right? So I'm like, whatever you do, treat this as a business transaction. And when the rent is due on the 1st, it's due on the 1st.
Correct.
If there's a late fee due on the 5th, you charge it. Yes. You don't waiver.
Correct.
And if they still haven't paid you, the notice goes in the door right away. Because the one thing I've noticed is the minute you give an inch, they're going to take a mile.
Correct.
That's just kind of how it goes.
There's a reason rules are in place, and you need to enforce them.
Yes, definitely.
Correct.
All right. This is Tampa Home Talk. We'll be back with our guest, Ashvin Maharaj, on property management in just a moment.
Welcome home. Tampa Home Talk here, reminding you on Sunday, you lose an hour of sleep.
You were excited about that during the break.
And you actually don't feel that hour of sleep loss until Monday, when you go to bed too late on Sunday.
We know all your people are going to be late Monday. That's just how it goes.
Yeah, it's just how it happens. It's at least most of the clocks are auto-setting. I think my microwave's the only clock in my house that doesn't auto-set.
It's pretty fascinating what you were saying about the daylight
Standard?
Yeah.
Daylight standard time? Like, we need to do away with it. I mean, it originated because they wanted to give farmers an extra hour in their day, but that's not how farmers farm.
I can't believe that. I've never heard that before.
That is true. Look it up.
That useless trivia knowledge.
It's true.
Yeah, daylight savings time came about because they wanted to give farmers an extra hour in their day, and farmers at that time frame when they did this in the 1800s didn't have clocks because they just do things as per the solar cycle anyway.
I think, I heard, I think it was on the radio or somewhere, that the movement right now is stronger than ever to push to not continue to change time. But I think, and we've been talking about this, I think people favor the one that we're going into, not the one that we're in.
I don't care which one's favored as long as it's, let's say, standard. As long as we have a daylight standard time.
So I'm curious. I'm just curious. We got some people watching on Facebook. So you guys tell me, if time change were to be permanent, would you prefer the one that we're in or the one that we're going to go to next week? Let me know that. I'm just curious to get your answer.
One we're in is the standard one because we're only an hour. So we're currently in line with the places we're supposed to be in line with. Like, let's say Belize is 1 hour from here. Belize is about to be 2 hours from here, even though it's physically in the swash that should be 1 hour from here. And same thing with Arizona. We're actually...
Arizona doesn't time change, though.
They don't time change it. We're 2 hours off right now. We're about to be 3 hours off. So the one we're currently in is the one that we should be in if we're going to do away with it.
Got it. Yeah, I don't know. I'm wondering, they wouldn't do it for the whole country. It would be state by state.
Yeah, it's
really.
going to have to be state by state, like the legalization of marijuana. When you get to a point, it should just be the whole country.
But it's a state by state.
I know.
They try to stay out of it. That's what they say anyway. But
well, there's certain things the federal government should stay out of, and daylight savings time happens to be one of them. But enough states need to just get on board with this. I know there's another movement to get rid of the Electoral College, and you have a bunch of states that are signing up. And after a certain point, when so many states have signed up for it, the federal government will then adopt it federally.
Yeah, so far the feedback on the Facebook polls, they like the one that we're going to be going into. So if we had to stay on one permanently, it would not be the one we're in. Be the one we're going into after Sunday.
And this is probably why they haven't done away with it, because half the states would choose one and half the states would choose the other.
You're right. I think you're right about that.
But While I have a preference for the one we're in, if it means getting rid of it, I'll take either or.
You just don't like it.
There's no point.
Oh boy.
There's absolutely no point.
Yeah, I mean, it's always been a thing. So it'll be one of those things that, like, if you're older and it goes to permanent, be like, I remember when we used to time change. I remember when that was a thing.
And I remember when people lived in caves. We don't do that anymore.
Oh, whatever. Whatever.
You never watched the Flintstones growing up?
Of course I did.
And you know who's putting people in those caves? Property managers. I got to segue this back into the...
Ashwin Maharaj with All Country Alliance Property Management is here this morning on Tampa Home Talk.
All Country and Cave Property Management.
And caves. Have you rented a cave before?
No.
Is there something I should know
Actually,
here?
We do have a very unique property in our portfolio. It was built during the Cold War time, so it's actually a bomb shelter built to withstand nuclear fallout.
Is it underground?
It kind of.
Is it in Wesley Chapel?
Yes.
Is it concrete?
Did it have an antenna going up once? Is it off of Quail Hollow?
Does it have a 50?
I know exactly what property you're talking about.
Does it have a 50-foot flagpole with a flag on it?
Wait, you actually rented that property? Okay, so that used to be Vandekar's, like, family member's house. Like, people that have lived here a long time know that.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah. So
I've lived here a long time. Don't look at me like that.
No, my mother was in the house when she was young, and I guess apparently it's changed a lot over the years. And I saw on Facebook they actually did a cleanup on the Vandekar residence. It's gotten all overgrown, and probably should do it again. I sold a house right by there. Like, literally, you can see it.
Right. So we had a 1963 style home that was ready to be nuked in the Cuban Missile Crisis.
So it's an underground bomb shelter, and
it's partly underground.
Is there any windows? There's no windows, is there?
Yeah, there is.
There is?
There is.
Is it on the top?
The glass is about 3-4 inches thick.
Wow.
Yeah.
That is interesting. Yeah, so that would be cool to talk about, like, unique properties.
Yeah. It's a very unique property.
So let's talk about the process for someone who is looking to rent, because I know sometimes people get a little bit like, well, what do you require of renters, right? When they're applying for one of your properties to rent, what are you looking for? What do you pre-screen them on?
We're looking at not credit score, but credit history. So we make sure they haven't had any previous evictions. Bankruptcies.
Like ever, or are you going a certain time back?
We go about 3 years back.
Okay.
So if they've had an eviction within 3 years, we still entertain the thought of putting them into the property, but we review it and we see what the cause of the evictions were. Bankruptcy, same thing. We had a lot of tenants who've had bankruptcies. They owned houses during the market crash in about 2007, 2008, and they had to file bankruptcy. So we don't hold that against them. So we do put them in.
So what are you looking for? What are the non-negotiables?
The income. We have to make sure that they can afford to rent the property.
Are you running debt-to-income ratios, or are you doing 3 times the amount of rent?
We do it 2.5 times.
Okay.
Yeah, 2.5 times the rent.
What other things are you looking for? What other things can hang somebody up?
We look at their current debt. We've had a lot of applicants with, $200,000-$300,000 owing on car payments, vehicle payments, and
have you seen the ones where the car payment's higher than the housing payment? Yeah, I can't even imagine that. But
yeah, so we look at when we go through their record, we look at any little thing that we think would stand out to us. So we go through each one. It's not just a matter of, okay, this person's score is 600. Yes.
So Ashvin, I have to ask. Is it just me, or the one that comes in with the car payment that's $1,000 a month? Do you not want to say something? You want to, but you don't. But
you want to, but you don't.
I see that's the difference. I don't do property management, so right. I do. I actually do say something to them. What's the highest car payment you've seen when you're looking at pre-screens?
I think I've seen about a $1,200 car payment.
Yeah, that's about what I've seen too. Can you imagine that, a $1,200 car payment?
Yeah.
Leo's like, what?
I'm trying to think. What is that? $120,000 car, or is that a buy here, pay here?
I think basically they're rolling negative equity onto a really expensive truck or something like
Probably.
that. That's what I think.
This person, he had a BMW, the i3, I think it is. It's about $150,000 car.
Yeah, I was thinking that you
Yeah.
got to have a pretty expensive car to have a
Yep.
payment that high.
I would never have a payment that high. Like that's a mortgage payment. Like
Correct.
as far
It's
as
more
I'm
than a
concerned.
mortgage payment.
Yeah. Mm-mm.
But
I would not do
while
that.
$1,200 is a mortgage payment, it's still cheaper than a rent payment.
I still maybe. I guess it depends on what they're renting. What's the cheapest thing you have for rent?
About $1,100.
So there, they could have a $1,100 rent payment.
No, but that's a one-bedroom
$1,200
condo
car payment?
somewhere, right?
Right.
Yeah,
Right.
what's a 3-2 house going for nowadays in rent?
It depends on the area.
Of course.
We just had
Right around the station.
Yeah,
Right
right
now.
around the station. Let's
Right
say I
around
wanted to roll out of bed 2 minutes before the radio show and get to the radio show.
You're probably looking at about $1,700 minimum.
Let's say that I want to live in Ybor and drive comfortably for 30 minutes from my one-bedroom condo.
Well, Ybor is not my market, but it is much higher. It will be much higher.
And you're in Tampa.
Oh, boy.
Yeah.
Depends on what you're renting, right? Renters see value just like homeowners do. So
Correct.
if it's fully updated and it's beautiful, they're going to pay more in rent.
Correct.
If it's older and it's dumpy, you're going to get less.
Correct. We just had a 2-2 rented out in Spring Hill. It was at $1,000, and it just rented out for $1,395.
Yeah, what's the difference in that gap? Like how long were they renting at that price?
They were renting but not paying rent, so that was one of those that we evicted.
Yeah. So the owner rented it and it was below market rent
Correct.
to begin with. Yeah,
Correct.
that's
where you run into the formula. That's why you
That's some
don't
of the
do
things-
favors.
Correct.
Well, it's just, we see some really bizarre stuff. I've got one right now where the guy's selling the property and it's literally like a family member that's in it. And I've had some investors that are looking at it and they're like, we want to see the lease. And he's like, no, they're a family friend. I'm not giving you the lease.
Correct.
It's like, yeah, and then when we gave them the market rent, I would say, if I had to guess, they're probably paying, I would say $900 if I had to guess, give or take $100. And when the investors ran the fair market rent, they're like, well, it's really about $1,800, but we'll rent it to them for $1,700 if they want to stay. And so when we gave the tenant the amount, they're like, yeah, no, I don't think we want to sign a new lease.
We actually do get a lot of clients like that who've rented it to a friend or family member, don't get the kind of rent that they should be getting, don't get paid all the time, don't have a lease in place, so they'll usually call us.
Yeah, I've got a friend literally right now that like they rented out their place and she's like, can you stick a for rent sign in front of my house because my tenant's not paying? And I was like, you might need more than that, but yeah. So now, are you seeing like a large number of people, like have you seen rentals actually increase since COVID, or has it slowed down, or what have you seen?
The amount of people coming in to rent?
Well, yeah, definitely out of state. I want to talk about that. And then, like in general, has it sped up or slowed down in terms of rental demand?
It's sped up. Our listings probably staying on the market for about a week and a half, and we'll have multiple people applying.
So how do you choose? You do first one that pays the application?
No, the best qualified.
Oh, you do? So
Yeah,
you take multiple applicants?
Correct. And
Wow.
So if we have a house on the market today and we get 3 applicants today, we'll screen all 3 and see which one is the best fit.
Now, the tenant usually is going to pay for the pre-screen, right?
Yes.
And how much is that?
It's $50.
So what happens if you have 3 people apply, they all gave you, let's say there's 2 adults, so they're giving you $100 each family, and you're picking the best one. What about the 2 that you didn't pick? They don't get their money back?
They don't get their money back.
Wow.
The screening money goes to someone else.
Correct. The screening money goes
I
to the
know.
screening
Yeah,
company.
it's third-party
Correct.
service. I get it.
And it's known to them. Most of our tenants, we tell them to call us before you apply. Let's make sure. We'll even do a pre-screening with them over the phone or if they're at the property, and find out what might stand out to us in their screening.
And one of the things I'm curious about is like how long it takes you to get your pre-screen back and make a decision and do all your homework and verify all your stuff. And I guess we'll have to talk about all of that after the break.
Okay.
But if you've got a property that you want to rent and you want some help with property management, maybe your tenant's not paying, or you think you're under market, or you just want to check, you want to verify whether or not you're under market, and if you could get a lot more for the property, might be a good time to not renew that lease and find a new tenant, or at least give them the option at the fair market rent. And our off-air number is 813-377-2775. Just text rent to 813-377-2775, and we'll get you connected with Ashvin. 813-377-2775. This is Tampa Home Talk, and we'll be back right after this break, so stick around.
Any other type of questions you guys have?
Welcome home. We're back. And
Welcome home.
That's his intro. Segment number 4 is to ask us the types of questions we have.
All right, what do you got, Leo? Rapid fire. Let's ask him some questions.
Rapid fire.
What do you think about, what questions do you have? Property management, definitely well served because it's a business transaction, not a friend transaction. We see it. We talked about how that goes, right, in the last segment.
So do you also handle short-term rentals or just you do in the long-term?
We
long
do
game?
long-term. We do long-term. We do have some offices that do short-term rentals. Our market is not that great for it. We're not at the beach, so we don't do the anything less than 6 months.
Yeah, all of the now 6 months. Do they have taxes right on
Yes,
it? If
correct.
it's less than 7,
Correct.
right?
Less than 7.
Yeah,
Yeah, because the idea is if it can only be rented really twice in a year and not more than that.
Correct.
It's considered a long-term rental.
so just do it one more month and there you go.
Correct.
Or just let it sit vacant.
Yeah, I don't know about that.
Yeah, if it avoids
I don't
taxes.
know about that. Well, maybe, but. So what kind of, you got to give us some of your property management stories because I know you got some. Let's talk about some of the craziness that you've had with tenants. Let's talk about, and I've seen stuff change with law enforcement too, like where they just literally are very hands off about any issues with the tenants.
Well, we had a very interesting one last week. This week, Monday, we had an eviction. It was for a house in Wesley Chapel that was won at auction. So the homeowner bought it on auction from out of state, didn't look at the property, doesn't know what it was. We showed up at the property. It was completely demolished. It was pretty much just, there was about 6 feet of trash all around the house. Was
the inside clean upable?
No, it's not salvageable. When we went with the sheriff's department, the sheriff was standing and there was trash up to his shoulder, and he warned us, don't go inside. I still peeked inside, took a little video of it. It was a bunch of transients living in there. The house has been abandoned for about 3 years.
Did it get foreclosed on for taxes that they bought it? Okay.
Correct. So they bought it at a tax auction. We did not manage the
I thought
property.
the tax auctions are after April, no?
No, they bought this last year.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so they
Got
bought
it.
this last year, and they couldn't do anything with it because of the eviction moratorium. Most of the attorneys didn't know how to handle it. We finally found one that was able to process an eviction for it. We went there on Monday. We can't manage a property that you can't put a tenant in. So we helped the owners through to the eviction process, got them, possession of the property, and now we handed it over to contractors.
I was like, so now what? Now what are they doing?
has
So
to
he's
be
going to
rebuilt.
rehab it?
Yeah, so they're going to have to demolish the entire thing.
So
Bigger
how
and
much
better
did he
than
pay
before.
for it? Do you know?
I think he paid about $30,000.
Okay, well, that's what 30,000 gets you.
Yeah,
Well,
so he got
that's
the land.
kind of what you do in some of these tax auctions. You adopt
Right.
an issue. It's like when buying a note, you adopt an issue. You either resolve the issue or you say, well, I bought it for so cheap. Can I get it to where I need it to be and still have it cheap?
Yeah. Yep. Makes sense to me. So, all right, what else? I'm sure you have some other stuff.
We've had one where we've had a tenant not pay rent after move-in. Not our tenant. We inherited this tenant. They didn't pay rent. Once we hit them with the eviction notice, they pretty much walked out the door and locked everything in there and just abandoned it with, food on the counters and left it for about 2 weeks. Food, clothes, furniture, everything in there, and just walked away.
Yeah, they left it right for you, I'm sure,
Correct.
intentionally.
Correct.
We've seen all kinds of stuff, though, like literally, I'm trying to think of some of the stuff that I've seen. There was a property I know that we inherited with a tenant, and the company before only checked in Hillsborough County. The property was in Pasco, so they didn't check the evictions in Hillsborough. So she was what we call a professional tenant, and literally took it all the way to court to where the judge, she tried to make it sound like, that repairs weren't being made and all this stuff. That's not how it went down. But
correct.
the judge said, okay, I'll reduce your rent, blah, blah, blah. Well, then she didn't pay it, and she got a writ of possession within 3 days.
Well, one thing with us, our evictions and our tenants, we don't have that many crazy stories because I guess we do a good job screening tenants.
Yeah.
Putting them in. We've had 2 tenants that we have evicted that we have put in there, and it was unfortunate circumstances that they had to be evicted.
You
loss
did
of
do air
jobs.
quotes. It's supposed to be unfortunate circumstances.
Yeah. I know. Well, it reminds me of some of the, like, I can tell you a bunch of stories where literally we get mailed keys, like,
Yeah.
for properties that we're going to sell. And I had this one property that literally the people mailed me a key. They had no idea really how long it was empty. It was empty for a long time. And it was pretty, like, somebody was mowing the grass. I think the neighbors or something, so it was okay. But, like, the inside just looked, like, old and abandoned. So I went up to the house, opened the door, or unlocked it with the key. And when I went to pull on the door to open it, the whole thing had so much termite damage that it went straight for me. And I, like, hopped over and the door, like, completely just, it was like an old jalousie door, so all the glass broke.
Oh, no.
Literally, it was so termite ridden, it just fell over on me. And then on the inside, there was like a tree and all kinds of stuff on the inside.
Wow. Well, every house we have in our portfolio, we visit at least once a month. We do a drive-by inspection, make sure everything looks okay.
Now, are you guys changing the air filters once a month too? Because I had heard that it's a good idea to have the property manager change the air filter because then you can also inspect the property.
The tenants are responsible for changing the air filters. We do an internal inspection once a year, so mid-lease. So in about 6 months, we would go in. We would send a third-party company to go in and do an inspection.
Now, the landlord pays for that, right?
No,
Yeah.
we actually pay for it.
Oh, you do? Okay. All right. So what no other craziness or?
Not really. Not really.
That's good.
We've had a lot of
How long have you been doing it?
we've opened our office in 2017.
Okay.
But before that, I was a investor myself, so that's how we started the company. We got out of the military. We had a house. Had to move to Houston. Had to find a renter had to find something to do with the property in 2 weeks, so we couldn't sell it. So we rented it out, hired all county, and loved it. When we moved back to Tampa Bay, we just naturally bought into our franchise.
You guys work with a lot of rental, a lot of military people?
Correct. Yes.
Oh, good.
Yes, we do.
All right. Well, this is Tampa Home Talk. It's been a cool hour covering property management. Definitely want to protect probably some of your biggest assets, right?
Correct.
I mean,
Yep.
really, real estate is, those are your, as my financial advisor will call it, the home runs, right?
It's as big as your 401k.
Bigger in
Yeah,
some cases
correct.
for many people. All right, this is Tampa Home Talk. It's been a great hour. When we come back for hour number 2,
We're going to talk about forgeries and fakes.
yeah, we're going to be with Kevin Overstreet, 10
I
common
love his stories about
title problems.
fake title.
And then we have G. Root with Stockholm Law Group, and he sues HOAs. We're going to have fun with this, so stick around. We've got an exciting hour lined up for you still. Tampa Home Talk, Live Where You Live, We'll Fix It. We'll be back for hour number 2.